So this is an intro for the movement and mindset course that I'm running. And all the exercises we're going to do are going to be chair-based, but if at any point you need to get up, walk around, if you're more comfortable, just you don't have to stay sat in the chair. It's should be about a 50-minute session. It'll be a little short today because we're going to have a bit of time for questions and answers at the end and things like that. But started without my glasses. I'm going to my little props. So I'm going to grab my props. I use quite a few props. Glasses though. Oh, I can wing. I've got all my notes that I type out and like plan to follow, and then yeah, can't actually read anything. So the idea of the movement and mindset session is that often when we've got persistent pain, we're fearful of moving, so we're worried that we're going to make things worse. So a lot of the mindset part of the session is about reducing that fear around movement and feeling a bit more confident and kind of building a different relationship with our body where we can begin to trust the body a little more and can like rewire pathways. So some of you, like, you've heard me talk about the what's happening in our body when we experience pain. It's the brain interpreting what's going on in our body, and it's sending signals to protect us, to stop us from from harming ourselves. Sometimes those signals can get a little awry, like they go, it can become a bit overprotective. So, like there's a few things, like there's a little phrase, motion is lotion. And most people, when they're told that they've got pain, they're told to keep moving, because when we move, we're lubricating the joints and it's helpful for our body. When we become fearful of the movement, our body will brace and tense against us moving. So these sessions are about unraveling that bracing pattern and building up a bit more trust in our body again to feel that we can move more easily. And some of the work we do is about mapping, and you've done this for me already. We did the lying class, but we're going to just have a little exercise of mapping our hands. So we know what our hands are like. Oh, sorry, before we start, I think I've had a chat with both of you. Hands are okay, okay? No, yeah. So I'm going to ask you to do a bit of movement with your hands. Obviously, if it's not comfortable, don't move into discomfort. But just start holding one hand and squeezing it, feeling what parts are soft, what parts are bony, and have a little play, like which bits move, what direction they move, so our fingers move a certain way. So this, our map of our hands, you can probably sense that movement. If I asked you to make a fist, you could do that without looking at your hand. You'd know how to do that. There wouldn't be any part of that the map wasn't in place. But often when we've got pain, we'll be like, well, I know my finger will move in this direction, but without manually moving it, it won't do it. So there's something that's gone a little awry with the map. So we're going to think about through the course, we're going to be mapping movement in our body and building that trust and the nervous system wiring. So, and then we're going to think about how parts might move together and move separately. So we're going to have a little play. So with your hand sticking your thumb out, can you do that with them? And not much else moves. All your other fingers are still. Could you lift your index finger and move that without the other fingers moving? It might be a bit tricky if the other fingers might want to get involved. Could you do the two? And we have to think about it because the little finger wants to do something. So the map of being able to do this, because how often do we do this? That map isn't clear because it's not something we necessarily do very often. It kind of like, we can move these independently, but it takes quite a lot of concentration. We're having to figure out what we're doing, and some other parts of the body we might have lost that ability to move in that way. So that's the idea behind the mapping. And then the mindset ideas are about making us feel a bit safer in our body. So often when we've got pain, we've got this protection, like maybe an oversensitive protective system is what we talk about in pain science. And it's about making us feel a bit safer to do those movements. So anything that helps calm our nervous system, takes us out of the fight or flight, is helpful for that. When we've got persistent pain, we are more likely to be in a heightened state of anxiety and fight or flight. And the other thing I'm going to suggest we do 3 sessions is check in. So notice how you are at the start, notice how you are before exercises, before movements, and track if there's any change. And sometimes there will be, sometimes. So if you were to think about anxiety levels now, and without making yourself more anxious, just naming it, saying like on a 1 to 10, just in your head, think if 10 was high, 1 was low, where you might be on that scale, and just thinking where you are. How your energy levels might be. So if you are feeling really energized, like got loads of energy, you're at a 10. If your energy is like, it's hard getting out of bed, so 1. And where you might be with that. And then I don't like the pain scale, but sometimes it's helpful just to track if things change. So what score you might give yourself in terms of the level of sensation. I don't like calling it pain either. So what sensations that maybe not ones that we want in our body, where you would be on that scale of 10 is high and 1 was just marking that. And then squint at my notes. And we're going to do a little bit of movement. So that's kind of the introduction of what to expect during the course. And then we're going to try a few of the movements, a few of the mindset exercises to give you a flavour. Well, yeah, I have all sorts of props. So in sessions, I will talk about how much we stretch. So if we stretch a little bit or overstretch, and like I quite like my little props, how one part of the body, if we move one part of the body, it is linked to other parts. So we've got that contraction or expansion. And then these represent how our fascia, which is like this sort of layer under the skin between muscles, can get a bit stiff. And we've got pain, we've got a stiff layer of fascia in our body. If we were pain-free, it would be like a chain film flag, it would move much more easily. So I use lots of props. And in other sessions, I might not do such a long intro, but I might explain a little bit about what's going on with this. Okay. So we're going to start off with some tiny movements. And oh yeah, I can just about read what I'm doing. I will look for my glasses and things. So we're going to start, if it's okay, with the feet flat on the floor. And just press ever so slightly into the feet. So it's like we're pushing the floor away and noticing if you can track that through your body. So when we press down into our feet, what else is happening? Can you feel a reaction in your calves? And if we keep it really, really small, you might not feel a lot, but there may be a little tightening of our calf muscles. Can you feel anything in your thumbs? Can you feel anything in your buttocks? And maybe even your back. Just that little bit of pressure pressing into the ground. And then we're going to increase that a little bit. So pressing a little bit further into the ground, and you might feel your pelvis rocking slightly. And you don't need to do this movement if you don't want to, but keep it really, really small. Let's see how it might be to just rock the pelvis a little. So when I do that, I can feel my thighs getting a bit more involved. I can feel my torso moving a little bit. And what I can imagine is you're in a rocking chair or like a swing or something. You kind of rock yourself. So we're doing that kind of movement. And you could even do it to the degree where you start exaggerating. So when you push into your feet, you might feel your legs engage and maybe lift up in the chest a little. And then let your body drop. So we're pushing into our feet, lifting up, and dropping. And you might find yourself linking this with the breath. If you do, that's great. If don't get too hung up with breathing though. So just go, see if you can just breathe in whatever way you're trying to avoid holding. And then if you chose to, we could extend this even further, and it's fine to stop at any level. This time when we pull our chest forward, we might lift up. You might feel it more in your lower back, and then rounding. So we're pushing into our feet, lifting up leg, lifting the chin, and down. And if at any point you're going to sense your body going into a bit of a protection mode, where it's like, I'm not sure, don't really know what I'm doing, don't know what if this is going to be okay, just stop. Just find a level that feels okay for you, where your body's not responding in a protective way. Also, we've got the chest lifting, head. Then we're going to have a go at moving our feet a little bit. So we're just going to tap our feet on the floor a bit. And sometimes when we're feeling a bit anxious, fight or flight mode, all our attention is in our head. So just bringing our attention down to our feet can help us feel a little calmer. Quite often, like if you notice yourself like tapping your foot in an anxious kind of way, that's your nervous system getting rid of that anxious energy. So allowing yourself to do spontaneous movement is good. Often we're taught to sit still. So yeah, tapping your feet and then have a go at drumming the heels if that feels okay. And just into whatever feels good for you. Don't need to, you can come back to the toes. And then we're going to have a go at sliding our foot away and lifting our foot up. And then lifting the foot up. And doing that to whatever degree of movement you feel comfortable with. And notice again, if there's any sort of contraction in the body that's going, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I don't like it. Or if it just feels safe and okay. And you might want to make that movement smaller. You might want to go quicker. How is it if you did that quick? Or if you slowed it right down, could you like take 10 times as long to bring your foot to the floor? And then really slowly bring it up. And often when we slow it down, we kind of get this jittery sort of movement in our foot, because again, the mat might not be that clear to move the body in that way. So we could do it quickly, but when we slow it down, there's a like disconnect a little bit. It's not so familiar. And when we're doing that, we're tracking, like you might be aware, you're working the calf, you're working the thigh, you might be working the glutes, you might feel a response in the lower back. And just by reminding the brain that this is okay, you're sat in the chair, you're not at risk of doing any harm to your hips or pelvis or back. That reaffirms those messages. We're going to try that with the other side if it feels okay again. You might want to go quick. See what feels better. You might want to make that move really small. And like for me, I'm not used to doing this small. You can see how much my foot is now shaking. I'm okay at doing it slowly, but if I do the small movement slowly, it's really not familiar at all. So just checking out what might feel familiar, what might feel comfortable, what the body is interpreting as safe, and where it might be sending some protection signals. Do that. Speeding it up, you might notice yourself, like this is me, I'm in a rocking chair. Like, oh yeah, that's what I do. If I was, I haven't sat in a rocking chair for a very long time, and I've stayed with a friend, well, 3 or 4 years ago. I just got one of those American rocking chairs, the old fashioned ones. Oh, it was just what my nervous system needed. It was just like, I want one of these at home. It's like, so yeah, just see if you can find a rhythmic movement. So you might just stay in your feet, might stay in your legs, or you might involve the rest of your body a little bit. Finding what's good for you. And we'll settle. We'll do, oh, I know what it says on the sheet and I've forgotten to do something. I'll get that. I'm going to do a couple more moves. One, lifting our toes up, so slightly different shape with the foot, noticing how that might work the muscles slightly differently through the leg. Again, onto the toes. Again, you might want to do that quick, or you could slow that down. That's okay. And sometimes our back can brace on something as simple as lifting our foot. So it's just noticing for you if you can find that kind of what I'd call a safe level of movement, or where your brain isn't trying to overprotect. We'll do that with the first, going to the toes and back. And we're going to do that a couple more times, or a few more times. I'm just going to grab some. So often I was saying about our mindset and our mind being in this heightened anxiety state when we're experiencing pain. And sometimes coming to the body isn't the best place to hang out. If we're feeling anxious and we're really anxious about pain, taking our attention inwards doesn't always help. So I use this, I've got a tablecloth it is, with a pattern. I'm sure if you're doing this at home, you'd have something colourful to look at. Here we have the blandest rooms ever. So one way we can take our attention out is by noticing our environment. And again, if we were in a kind of fight or flight state, we'd be checking our environment, checking for potential. If we were out on the Serengeti, we were a zebra eating grass, we would be looking out, somebody would be looking out for lions. So our nervous system likes to take in visual input or anything through our senses. So if you've got something, if you're at home and you look around your room, just find a particular colour and then have a look at all of those items of that colour. And just checking that and spending maybe half a minute or a minute doing that, and then switch to a different colour, or you might want to have a look for a shape. So on the cloth, there's loads of different shapes. When you find one you like, and have a little look for anything else you see of that shape. And it's a great way to take our attention away from what's happening inside in the body, what might be going on in the mind, but keeping it really short, because our mind is very well trained to focus on the stuff that might not be so hot. So we're just doing that exercise to short periods of time, and then forget it. So we'll leave that on. But it's something you can come back to, like if you're walking or out in the countryside, sat somewhere, taking in different colours, different information from you. And then we're going to do another one that feels quite supportive, which is just relaxing into the support. So I suggested you had your feet flat on the floor, but check, is that comfortable for you? Would you be more comfortable if your feet were in a different shape? If you need to get up and have a walk around, you can, just finding what sort of shape might be comfortable. If you could let your body sink down, and maybe feeling the pelvis supported on the chair, the back against the chair, and leaning into that support. Imagining you've got all the supportive people around you, you've got their hand on your back if that feels helpful, and just leaning into their support. allowing yourself to receive that. Same way we can lean into the chair, letting our body relax again. Back with a little bit of movement, you can have a little wriggle, a little jiggle around. Sometimes I talk about our body being a bit like a stiff drawer, and if you were trying to get a stiff drawer out, you'd have a little wiggle your hips. So yeah, have a little wriggle, a little shake, a little shimmy. Sometimes feel good and relieving. I was just thinking about that. Okay, and then we're going to have a little think about lubricating our joints. So we've done, we've lifted our foot, we've gone this direction with our foot. We can also circle our ankles. So you might want to hold a leg, whichever side feels good, and circling your ankle. If it doesn't feel so good with the leg off the floor, you could do it with the toe on the ground, but it tends to be a bit stronger on the joint. So see what feels okay. Go both directions. I'm not sure if you swapped yet. And then we'll bring that leg down. And having a go the other side if that feels okay. My left side is a lot clunkier than my right, so again it kind of shows our mapping is different one side of the body to the other, and then going the other way. And that's not pain compensation, that's just the way I've used my body. One side's a bit easier to move in. Now we go at straightening our leg. So and then maybe tucking in. So we've got bending our knee or straightening our leg and bending. If you chose to, you could do this with the foot off the ground, but you don't need to. Each move, I'll give you an extension that you could add in, or you don't. You can stick with the previous position. And same the other side. So we might start sliding. Movement through the knee joint. So our knee is designed to move like a hinge. It moves backwards and forwards. We get a few problems when it's bent and it moves sideways. So often you might see a footballer having a big panic attack about damaging their knee because their leg has gone off to the side from the knee in a way that it's not designed to do. So our knee is designed to go forward. And then oh, sorry, we didn't. Yeah, you could extend that by lifting the leg. You might have been doing that already. And then noticing if you do that, how much stronger it feels. And often it's with knee issues, when we can strengthen our quads, it puts less pressure in our joints. And whenever we're mobilizing our joints in pain science, explain pain, they talk about motion is lotion, it's lubricating the joints, so it's really helpful. But our knee and our ankle are designed to move in different ways. Our ankle will rotate, our hip will rotate as well. So we'll have a little go. If it feels okay, just holding the knee and doing a tiny circle from the hip. And we'll go one direction and the other direction. There's a lot more mobility from our hip joints. And then if you choose to, you might do that the other side, tiny circle, little movement. And then feet up. We'll do another little mindset thing next, which I actually learned last week. So I learned loads, I know loads of different, what we call centering practices. And I've done one before, which is like very similar, but this one was called Drop 3. I'm not sure where it came from, I should look at that. But just sense in your body how tight your jaw, your shoulders, and your belly feel at the moment. So without changing it, just notice, is your jaw tense? Like, is there tension here? How are your shoulders? Do they feel a bit raised? And then we're going to try relaxing each. So relaxing the jaw, you might want to just place the tip of the tongue behind the front teeth, just letting your jaw open a bit. Imagine your jaw just becoming a little heavier. See if that changes anything for you. And then with our shoulders, we could hunch them up a little, so exaggerating how they might be tense, and slowly as you can, letting them drop. It takes a long time for that process. So letting them drop. You might even feel comfortable with your arms by your side, and there may even be a little bit more drop. And then you might, if it helps, feel like you want to breathe into your belly, but you don't. If the breath, sometimes breath can make us more anxious. So if it helps, you might want to feel belly expanding, or just placing your hand on your belly and imagining it softening. Relax jaw, relax shoulders. And for me, when I do this, like all sorts of voluntary nervous system things happen. I might yawn, I might sigh, I kind of like, there's just a dropping down in my body. It's kind of like a second. And again, that's something you can do at any time. It's helping you move away from this protective response where our body maybe doesn't feel such a comfortable place to hang out, to a place where it feels a bit more calm, a bit more settled. And then, yeah, so whenever I come out of one of these, I rub my legs. It's like, so this is another way to set, for our nervous system to regulate. Rubbing, squeezing, tapping can all be ways just to take your attention out of your head and into your body. So sometimes just giving that squeeze, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this part is here, I'm aware of it, and it draws your mind to different places, particularly places that we don't experience pain. So it might be like, appreciate all that does for me. And then we'll do a little bit of arm movement. So we're going to start off with raising our arm and bringing it across the opposite shoulder. So just keeping it quite close to our body. And notice how that is. Notice if the shoulders lift, if you can relax them. You might have your hand right up. I'm keeping mine out of the way. So it could be anywhere up on the shoulder. And see how much you can relax your other shoulder. And then if it feels okay, lifting your arm up to a point that feels comfortable for you. If you see if you can keep this shoulder relaxed. And then dropping it down. Instead of lifting the elbow, we're going to take our arm there in front, reaching forwards and then coming back. And the elbow could drop down. So we reach out, and up with that elbow quite close in. Or this time you might want to keep your elbow out and just move your forearm. So this is a lot stronger through your arm muscles. You might notice the shoulder having to stabilize the arm a little more. Feels okay. We'll do one last move, reaching out, coming back to the shoulder. You might feel like, oh, your muscles are aware, you've done a bit of movement. So there's a bit of a response in the body, but it hopefully didn't feel any more painful for anyone. But we get that muscular feedback. And when we do exercise, that's what we'd expect. We get this feedback from the body. Sometimes, like I've been excessively blowing my nose with a sinus infection. And my abdominal muscles, I've noticed how much they're aching because I've been doing something a little bit out of the norm, and it's a bit of exercise. I took a lot of core work, so I'm quite surprised by this. But it's like I've been doing something slightly different and my body responds. So sometimes when our body's sore, that doesn't mean it's harmful, it's just a natural response. So we're going to start doing the same the other side. So we brought our arm to our shoulder, and I should have thought about this. I think we brought our elbow back, but I think there was something before it. Maybe not. So we were lifting our elbow. I think we just stayed there a little longer the first side. Sometimes when you know what's coming, the second time we can do it a little. And then we had a go at our arm coming out, but our elbow being close down to our body. See how it is. So there's probably less muscular demand than if we were to have our elbow lifted. Movement, find that pattern. And there's something about moving across our body that is great for our brain. That's why I'm asking you to cross to the other side. And then this time we're going to reach out, elbow could stay up, but it doesn't need to. If you feel okay, just being aware how much more muscular demand that takes. So you might feel it in your upper arm. If that doesn't feel so good, you can let it drop down. Find the level that feels okay for you. You're looking for a bit of a response, but not a bracing. Do one last move from next to the shoulder. We're going to do a similar thing where we're moving our arm, but this time I'm going to ask you to, well, no, we'll do it freely to begin with. I'm going to do this side because it's closest. So taking your arm up to the point where you might feel some resistance, if you feel it stop, or go right the way up, and then come back. So taking it to a point where you might feel a bit of a pushback from the body. If there isn't one, you're going to go right the way up. Your elbow might bend at the end, your hand might come quite far back. Finding your level, what your comfortable range of movement might be. Do one more. So we're going to do the other side, but I'm going to ask you to do it slightly differently. We'll do a few moves just to check the range of movement. Then I'm going to ask you to imagine somebody, or like you're moving through treacle. So there's some sort of resistance to that movement. There's like a force pushing your arm down whilst you're pushing it up. We're just going to check range of movement first. So do it really freely. Imagine your arm is floating up like a feather and coming down. Finding that range of movement that feels good for you. Your elbow might bend, your wrist. Do one more like that without resistance. Finding your range. And then we're going to imagine ourselves pushing through treacle. So imagine you're lifting your arm. Try doing it really slowly. And there's like a pressure pushing down on it. And notice how that affects things, how the muscles might feel different, how it is to go the halfway will come down. And then we'll try that again. So we're pushing, almost like we're pushing against. And then we'll get to halfway, you might want to go higher. Just check in what's happening in your body. So it's exactly the same movement, but we're imagining something different happening. I'd imagine it feels quite different in the body. So you could go right the way up, and it might be even harder to take the arm up once you get higher because you're having to push against something. You might imagine your arms like a lead weight. Notice how that might affect the shoulder, the other parts of your body, how like moving in this way, we've got the same motion, but there's this resistance, how it can work on muscles differently. Finish with this one. So often that can be what it's like when we're moving with pain. We're kind of almost pushing against it, we're resisting this movement. And it makes our body work harder. Sometimes doing resistance movements is a great way to use our muscles and build a bit more strength. So, but what fascinates me is the fact that just by thinking it feels different. Like we can imagine a situation where things. So we're going to try using our imagination. And I know there is a health condition where some people aren't able to use imagination. So if that's you, this won't be the technique for you. But I'm going to suggest you close your eyes if you're comfortable, or if you're in the room, you want to look at the cloth. It's quite a nice way just to keep your attention down. And just imagine yourself pouring some massage oil into your hand. And we did this in the previous group as well. And with that oil, I'm going to ask you to add as much detail as possible. So imagine the thickness of it. And imagine the temperature. It might be warm, it might be cool. You might imagine a scent that goes with it. Sort of essential oil, aroma. And you kind of got to feel the viscosity, the kind of thickness, the texture. And then imagining yourself putting that oil on any part of your body that might feel the best. And our imagination is very clever. We don't need to stay on the surface like we might if we were actually having a massage. We can go really deep into our body. And you could imagine the oil kind of just trickling its way through, kind of moving through different parts, or maybe being rubbed into an area deep in the body. And see if you can sense any soothing that might come. And you're likely to chosen the most painful and uncomfortable part of your body. So to feel soothing in that area might be quite tricky. So you might want to just shift to a different part of the body that's a little sore, a bit achy, but maybe not your primary source of pain. And picture the oil being rubbed into that area. And as you do, you may sense that the area becomes a bit looser, a bit more expanded, a little freer. And you might sense shifts, physical shifts in your body just by focusing on your imagination. And as I said, some of these tools work really well. Some people, it might not be the right tool for you, so you can let that go. We can have a little wiggle. Just coming back into the space. If you were closing your eyes, you might want to open them with your eyes gazing down. So we're going to finish with that practice today. I'm going to stop the recording, but then we can have a little chat about feedback or questions. But yeah, stop recording.